Hi there. Welcome to the marketing decision making end of topic test feedback. This will take us a similar format to the operations example that we went through recently. In this case, it's to do with the marketing and decision making. I'm going to split it in two. I'm going to look at the multi-choice questions first, and then we'll look at the longer questions on the second narrated PowerPoint. Okay. So first things first, let's have a look at the first example, or first few questions, which are on slide number 3, which I'm just trying to find for you. There we go. Excuse me. So the first question then. So 10 multi-choice questions. Which of the following is an internal factor which might influence a firm's marketing objectives? Well, if it's internal, it must be something within the business. Okay, so that really is the key thing that you need to be looking at, the internal factor. So if you're changing a supplier or a change in suppliers, changes in suppliers, well, that's an external factor. You can't predict what's happening as far as suppliers changing. The growth of in the economy, again, is something that you have no control over. It's an external factor. And new legislation is also an external factor to the business. So the only one that's an internal factor would be the level of skills of the employees involved. Okay, so that would clearly have an impact or an influence on the firm's marketing objectives. So for question 1, it is answer C. I'm going to jump across to the second question now, which is a formula question. What does this formula measure? So in this case, we've got market size in the year, take away the market size in the previous year, divided by the market size in the previous year, times by 100. So essentially, we're looking at the growth in the market from one year to the next. So it's market size from 1 year in this year, and taking away the previous year's market size and dividing it by the market size in the previous year would give us the market growth. It's not going to give us market size, market share, or market volume. It's going to give us B, market growth. So the size, the increase in size of the market essentially is what that formula would give you. Okay, let's move on to number 3 then, question number 3. Okay, there are 5 common marketing objectives, and they are sales volume and value rather, market size, market and sales growth, and one other. Okay, well, looking at the objectives here, you wouldn't necessarily have a common advertising marketing objective. You wouldn't have a marketing mix objective. The marketing mix is the 7 Ps, and it's a model that's used to assess the way in which a business might go about its marketing. Market analysis, again, that's not really going to be a marketing objective, but having high levels of brand loyalty or setting that as a target would be a legitimate and relatively common marketing objective to set. So question number 3 would be, the answer would be A, brand loyalty. Okay, so let's look at the next set of questions then. Okay, so move on to question number 4. Which of the following is an example of primary market research? Well, remember, primary market research essentially is stuff that you produce or research yourself as an organisation. Okay, the secondary market research is, or any sort of secondary market research, is stuff that's been produced by others in some shape or form that you might use in some way to assess your marketplace in the sense. So in this instance, then, excuse me, government publications are things that have already been produced and published by the government, so that wouldn't be a source of primary research, it would be a source of secondary research. Questionnaires clearly would be a source of primary research because you create it yourself, you ask your customers or potential customers what they are looking for, and as a result of that, that would be a primary means of research. Competitor websites and Mintel reports are both secondary sources of research. So the only one that is a primary market research source in this case is questionnaire. So the answer is B. So let's move on to question number 5 then. A benefit of qualitative data is Does it summarize data? Is it easy to compare? Does it identify trends and forecasts in the future? Well, that's the sort of thing that quantitative research will do. Again, easy to compare. It's very easy to compare quantities and changes in quantities, and it's quite easy to summarize data when you're talking about quantities or quantitative research. Okay, qualitative research is much more about how people feel and the reasons for their feelings and their attitudes. Okay, so in this instance, qualitative data, the benefit is it gives insights into why consumers act the way that they choose to. Okay, so that clearly is, in this case, the answer for question 5. So question 5 is answer C. Okay, let's move on to question number 6 then. Here we've got a term that we've got to think about what this means. Okay, so analyzes market conditions to identify the position of one product or brand relative to another in the market in terms of given criteria. And that is the definition of one of these things here. Is it a definition of stakeholder mapping? Well, no, that's basically looking at your different stakeholders and then trying to map them as to where they sit. Are they important? What sort of levels of power do they have? And what sort of levels of interest and influence do they have? Correlation is actually looking at data and seeing if anything relates to it, or you can actually link one piece of data to another. So that wouldn't be the definition that we're looking for there. And extrapolation is taking figures and then assessing where you think the market might go in the future. So again, that's not the definition that we're looking for. So market mapping, thinking about market mapping, and maybe you may remember that we did that with the car industry in one of the examples. And that's where you're basically looking at the position of a product relative to a couple of different criteria, and then trying to spot whether there's any sort of gaps in the market that you can satisfy better than somebody else is doing so at the moment. So for question number 6, the answer would be C, market mapping. Okay, let's move on to the next questions then, the next 3 questions, and that then finishes off the multi-choice answers. Okay, so question number 7. So in this case, we've got a calculation that we've got to do. If a market is worth £40,000 in 2000 pounds, it's worth £40,000 in 2015 and expected to grow by 5%, what is the predicted market size in 2016? So if the market was 40,000 and it's going to grow by 5%, we need to take the 40,000, times it by 5%, and then whatever the sum of that is, add that to the existing market value of 40,000, and basically that is another £2,000. So the total is, for the predicted market size in 2016, answer A, £42,000. Okay, moving on to question number 8 then. And then this is a price elasticity of demand question. Okay, now if you remember the price elasticity of demand, and what the important thing to remember there is that if the number is above 1, then that means that there is elastic demand. That means that if price increases or changes, then the demand will also change with that figure. Okay, so as soon as you see anything over 1 as a value for price elasticity of demand, you should know that demand is elastic, price elastic. So that means that if prices change, then the level of demand will also change significantly. Okay, so in this instance, if you've got 2.6 minus 2.6 as the elasticity of price elasticity of demand, then demand is price elastic. So the answer there is true. Okay, question number 9 then. When future sales are predicted on the basis of past sales, this is known as one of these 3 things: market analysis, correlation, calculation, or extrapolation. Well, I think we may have mentioned that on one of the previous questions, where if you're talking about trying to predict where a market might go based on past sales, you might graphically show that, and then you will extrapolate the line, that trend line, if you like, to see where you think the sales may go. Okay, so in this instance, that wouldn't be market analysis, It wouldn't be correlation and it wouldn't be calculation, it would actually be extrapolation. And if you're not sure about extrapolation, take a look in your marketing booklet. There is quite a good definition of what extrapolation is. It's a bit of a blunt instrument, but it is used by some organisations to decide where sales might go in the future. Okay. And then finally, as far as multi-choice questions are concerned, let's take a look at question number 10. Which of the following is the most common distribution channel in the UK? And you've got 4 alternatives to look at there. We've got producer to consumer, producer to retailer to consumer, producer to wholesaler to retailer to consumer, or producer to retailer to wholesaler. Well, the traditional and the most common distribution channel would be from producer to retailer to consumer. So if we take as an example, let's take something in the food industry. If we've got somebody who's producing sweet corn, so that they are producing that, they are actually maybe canning that and then selling it to a retailer, and then the retailer is then putting it in their shop or on their website and essentially selling to the consumer. So the most popular or the most common distribution channel in the UK is from producer to retailer to consumer. Okay, so the next slide actually is all of the answers included on one sheet. Okay, so you can see they are answer 1 is C, answer 2 is B, answer 3 is A, answer 4 is B, answer 5 is C, answer 6 is C, answer 7 is A, 8 is A, 9 is D, and 10 is B. And that's basically just the questions that we've worked through here in the last 3 slides. Okay, so I'm going to stop there and let you take a breather and have a think about those questions. If you're not sure about any of them, please come back to me and email me or contact me on Google Classroom and we can look at those together. Okay, so thank you for listening, and I'll be back shortly.